All right, welcome to our next lesson on Apple Watch and developing Apple Watch applications using SwiftUI. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at watch complications. So what you're seeing here in the simulator is just a sample of what our end product's going to be. So what we're going to focus mainly on here is the Apple Watch, and we're going to see here that we have this component, and these components are called watch complications. Each component you have here. So the time, the lighting of the Earth, solar system, planet alignments. That's actually my personal favorite. Date and so on. Each of these things is a complication, and the beauty of the Apple Watch is you can swap in and out complications and really customize your Apple Watch face exactly how you want it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our own complication. You're seeing here, this is the sample complication we're going to create. It's going to be a continuation of our conference planner application we made last time around. Except we're not going to do any connectivity. We're just going to hard code all of our data directly onto the watch, just pull it on, place it onto the complication, and it'll just show the next session. And so what we're seeing here is just at the final session already, and I'm actually simplifying down the timings out to be like 1 minute sessions, one after the other, just to illustrate the timing and how it works on its own. So what you're seeing here is that the last session, it was at 9:49. It's 10:03 at this point. So it had already actually went through the other items in the timeline. We'll talk about that as well. So this is the final product. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create a fresh project here, and we'll continue on with iOS app with watch app. I mean, you could probably get away with just a watch app on its own. I'll hit next. So what I'm gonna do is I'm only gonna do one thing with the Apple Watch, the iPhone side of things. So first off, just to recap, we have a ton of files here in front of us. The best way to look at the project navigator is that the top portion up until I would say this folder with preview content is basically iPhone stuff. All right, it's all iPhone stuff. From here downwards, so M10P2 watch complication WatchKit app downwards up until preview content here, this is watch stuff. Think of it as being like an invisible border between both device project files here. One does not see the other. All right, so that's what we talked about last exercise. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to just ignore the phone side of things, except I'm just going to add something silly like I showed you in the demo there. So in the content view, I'm just going to put ignore me. I'm complicated. Just as a message to tell the user, hey, I'm not doing anything with the iPhone app in this example here. And instead, I'm going to focus my energy down in the bottom half here. And I'm not going to do anything with the watch side of things here. I'm going to leave hello world there. I could probably just change the text to be exit me and look at the watch face. Right, that's about as far as I could take it. Only file I care about for complications is the Complication Controller. All right, this is the only file I care about. And we're going to talk about this right now. It's a fairly lengthy file. It can get overwhelming the first time you look at it. But really, we're going to be configuring this file to work with our watch complications and get our complication up and running. So we're going to use this file to configure our complication. Before that, we need some data. We need some data to populate our complication with. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create or add a new file to host our information. We're going to reuse our program. Well, we'll reuse our program object from the last application to some degree. So instead, I'm actually going to just recreate it. So I'm going to first off make a little folder or a new group just so I can keep my classes in there. I'm going to call it classes. And within it, I'm going to right click and say new file. And this will be an iOS Cocoa Touch class. And we'll hit next. And be a subclass. We'll call it an NS object. Call it program object. Hit next. Give it home. And I'm going to add one more class. I'm going to say new file. Again, iOS Cocoa Touch class. And subclass of NS object. Say program data. Give it a home. Okay, so the two classes that I have here. I'm going to start with program object. Just going to configure this this class here. So first off, we'll reuse the same details from last time around. Var title is a string. Var speaker is a string. But this time around, var from will be date. Last time I used strings because I didn't want to get into the whole date and time thing. But this time, we're going to be taking advantage of the timeline on the watch, so they can automatically advance information, sessions and so on, info on the watch. And so we're going to have to use date for that. var2 will also be a date. And then finally, var details is a string. All right, I'm going to add a little constructor. Func init with data, so my own custom constructor. I'm going to pass in title, will be a string. Will be a speaker, will be a string. We'll say from will be date. To will be date. And finally, details will be a string. Inside of it, we'll just say self.title is equal to title. Self.speaker equals speaker. Self.from is from. Self.to equals to. Finally, self.details equals details. And you just gotta fix that little bug up there. There. And that's our program object class. So that's all we're gonna do with that. Now what we'll do is we'll move over to program data, create an array of program objects, hard code them, populate them, and then go from there. So I'm going to switch over to program data. And here, I'm just going to say var programs extends an array of program objects. We'll start off with it being an empty array. Now, I'm going to create a constructor for this, an actual legitimate constructor, so not a custom one that I just created in the other class there. Here, I'm going to type in init, and no, that's not the one I want. I try again, init. Try this one and see. There we go. I just wanted the override keyword, so that it actually does treat it like a proper constructor. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hard code we're gonna hard code 4 sessions. All right, a minute long each, just for our purposes here. So first, I'm gonna instantiate a program object. So let prog obj equal program object. And we'll say let calendar equal calendar.current. So now I'm getting the current date and time. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to initialize. We're going to set it up so that, and of course, it's not the complete 100% right way to do this, but for our application, our learning purposes, we're going to start off by just hard coding to right now. The session's beginning right now. So that's why we're doing this. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to say let start1 equal calendar dot date by adding. So what happens here is that with calendar dot date, we're going to add minutes. So add by minute. And we're missing an override argument here. So I'm going to just add a little argument here, value, add 1 minute, 2, and then instantiate a date object, meaning current date and time, as date. All right. Now, we'll say let end1 equal start1 dot adding time interval. So I'm going to add 1 minute, but time interval goes in seconds. So, and I'm going to do this kind of on purpose, but it's really 1 times 60, but you could just type in 60 for 60 seconds. Just to illustrate that, you know, if you want to add 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, I would do like 2 times 60, 3 times 60, just for your own readability sake as a programmer. You don't know what you're typing 6 months down the road, and you're probably wondering, okay, why am I doing this? So just for your own illustrative purposes, as date. All right, so I have my count, I have my start time, end time. Now I can go ahead and do a prog obj dot init with data. So title, I'm going to hard code. We'll say that the first title is The Life of a Banana. Speaker is Monkey from Monkey Kissing Donkey 2 and Code Llama, games I created. From time will be start 1. End time will be end 1. Details, we'll say Monkey will talk about bananas. All right, and then we can do a programs.append for prog obj. All right, so that's our first one. We'll just do it a few more times. So now what I want to do is I want to add a minute to the next program object. So first off, let's instantiate. I'll say let prog obj 2 equal program object instantiated. Now, let's say let start 2 equal end1 dot adding time interval of 1 times 60. Of course, you can just do 60. And we'll say let end2 equal start 2 dot adding time interval of, we'll just do another minute. Now I'm just doing this on purpose for our learning purposes again. So I'm just adding 1 minute so that we can actually sit there for a minute and watch this thing advance. And we'll say prog obj2 dot init with data. Title will be Donkey's Adventures. And speaker will be Donkey from start 2 to end 2. And say Donkey will talk about his life. All right. So far, so good. Let's move on to our third session. We'll say let prog obj3 instantiated from program object. Say let start 3 equal end 2 dot adding time interval for, again, 1 times 60, so another minute. We'll say let end 2 equals end 3 equal start 3 dot adding time interval for 1 times 60. So we're adding another minute here. And then prog obj3 dot init with data. So we'll say Yoti's life as a rock star. Of course, speaker is Yoti. So from start 3 to end 3, Yoti will share his singing career. All right, finally, we'll just do one more. So we'll say let prog obj4 equal program object instantiated. And we'll say let start4 equal end3 dot adding time interval for 1 times 60. Finally, let end4 equal start4 dot adding time interval for 1 times 60. All right, and finally, we'll say prog obj4 dot init with data, and we'll say this time voila, and how he escaped the zoo. Speaker is of course voila. Say start 4 is the start time, end 4 is the end time. We'll say details. Voila will talk about his life in captivity. All right, now you'll notice that we forgot to append the last 3 program objects. So since we're here, let's just do it right now. We'll just say programs dot append prog obj 2, and then programs dot append prog obj 3, and finally programs dot append prog obj 4. We've already done prog obj, so that's done. If you want to clean up the code a bit better, you could probably just move these lines of code where they belong. But we're basically done with initializing our data. So now what we'll do is we'll move over to our complication controller and we'll actually start applying this information there. All right, so now let's start into this behemoth we call the complication controller. First off, let's just instantiate our program data array. So we'll just say let full program equal program data instantiated. So that's going to call the constructor, initialize everything, and go from there. Now these first 2 methods have to do with the complication we're going to be working with. I'm going to focus on the first method. Now, there are different styles of complications, and as you recall from the watch face itself, there are different shapes, sizes. See if I can call it up here. So you can see there's different sizes and different styles of complication. What you can do here in this method is control which complications you're focusing on. So in older Xcodes, you may see this as checkboxes in the settings portion of Xcode. Here they've moved it to this method, get complication descriptors. If I actually change all cases and just hit dot, you can see that the different types available at your disposal for answering this, like extra large, graphic bezel, circular small, graphic circular, graphic corner, and so on and so forth. I'm just gonna do a command Z, just leave all cases, and I'm gonna show you. And the reason I'm leaving that is to show you how we can control our complication code to only work with specific types of complications. So let's move it down here. So get timeline end date. All right, this is the next method we're going to talk about. So basically, timeline is what we're working on here, and what we can do is we have the option to specify how big this timeline can go. All right, and I'm going to hard code it to be like an hour from now, and saying that our timeline will be from right now to an hour from now. So what I'll do here is I'm going to say var current date equals date instantiated, which is basically just saying get me the current date and time. All right, I'm gonna say then current date equals current date dot adding time interval. I'm gonna add 60 minutes, so 60 times 60. All right, and then we'll just say handler. Instead of handler nil, we're gonna say handler for current date. All right, so we're basically saying that our timeline will be for an hour from now with the get timeline end date method. Now the next method is get privacy behavior. What this does is it basically allows you to hide the information if the watch's lock screen is enabled. By default, it will show the complication whether or not the lock screen is on and set. And so what we're gonna, and I'll leave that setting. I'm not gonna play with it here. Now the next method is get current timeline entry. All right. What we're gonna do is we're gonna specify the data to place here for the first initial load of this complication. So the starting information. All right. Now, what's important here is that this code can crash if actually the remaining three methods that we see here can crash if we don't specify which complication we're working with. So what I want to do first is I want to say if complication dot family equals dot graphic rectangular. That's the one I'm going to be using for this exercise today. I'll create my curlies. I'll just say else, and I'll put this handler nil inside the else. I'm only working with graphic rectangular. All right. Now let's go ahead and code this up. So first thing I want to do is I want to populate with the first item in my array. So I need to grab so I need to grab a date formatter object. So I'm dealing with date objects. So I'm going to say let date formatter equal date formatter instantiated date formatter dot format date format will be equal to, I'm just going to use hour and minute. So that's all I care about. Don't care about date and time and stuff. Just hour and minute. And of course you can configure it to whatever you want. Let's say let time as a string. So time string equal date formatter dot string from full program dot programs of 0. So the first index dot from. All right. So I'm gonna grab the from value. I'm only showing from in this exercise today. Now let's populate our complication for the first initial entry. So we're going to say let template equal, and this is a long line of code, so I'm going to have to break this up into multiple lines. We'll say let template equal CLK complication template graphic rectangular standard body. Can't get no longer than that, people. So I've never seen an object that long. Opening round bracket. What I want is the overload that has header text provider, body 1 text provider, body 2 text provider. Now it'd be awesome you can show graphics as well. I'm not going to get graphics in this exercise, so that'll be the third one. I'm only doing pure text, but hey, take this and add images to it and see what it looks like afterwards. All right. Now for the header text provider, so this will be a CLK simple text provider object instantiated where text is going to be full program dot programs of 0 dot title. Body 1 text provider will be CLK simple text provider, and we'll say full programs, text be full program dot programs of 0 dot speaker. Finally, body2 text provider will have the time, so it'll be CLK simple text provider. Text will be just time string. All right. Now let's insert this into the timeline so that it can actually put this at the right time based on the time of the watch. So we're going to say let timeline entry equal CLK complication timeline entry and whereas we're going to use this overload with date and complication template. So the date will be full program dot programs of 0 dot from. So at that time, and the template will just be template. And then finally, handler of timeline entry. So we're returning this back. All right. It's a bit complicated. It may look complicated at first. Essentially, we are basically creating a template object to represent our complication at that moment in time. So it's basically going to be a header text provider, body1 text provider, body2 text provider. So basically 3 lines of text. And you saw from the overloads, you can use images. It'd be awesome to use images after we're done here. Go ahead and check it out. See what you can do with images here. Then we take this template, we give it a timestamp saying this is the appropriate time to show it by doing by providing the from value for that same entry in our array, and then we return it back as a timeline entry. So now it's inserted into the timeline basically a minute after we begin running this thing. All right. So now for the remaining ones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method to handle the remaining ones. And so the remaining ones will go inside get timeline entries. So I'm going to create a little method here. So func called getList. It's going to return back an array of CLK complication timeline entry objects, which is what we need. So we'll say here var timeline entry array is equal to an array of CLK complication timeline entries instantiated. We'll say next date is equal to date of, and then time interval since now. So we're basically adding 1 times 60 times 60. All right. And of course, I forgot the word var. So compiler is a little upset over that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to loop through our array. So I'll say for index in 0 to 3. And we'll say let date formatter equal date formatter instantiated. I'll say date formatter dot date format. We'll set it equal to, again, HHMM, so hours and minutes. We'll say let time string equal date formatter dot string from full program dot programs at index dot from. All right, and now we'll say let template equal, and we're going to instantiate another super long CLK complication. I have to be careful typing this. Template graphic rectangular standard body. Thank you, autocomplete. Open it up. And again, I'm just looking for the three texts. So header text provider, body 1 text provider, body 2 text provider. I'm going text only again. So the first argument here is CLK simple text provider, where text will be full program dot programs at index dot title. Body 1 will be CLK simple text provider using the text overload. This one will be full program dot programs at index dot speaker. And body 2 text provider will be CLK simple text provider text times string. All right. Now let's put this into a timeline entry. So we'll say let timeline entry equal CLK complication timeline entry date and complication template. So we'll say date will be full program dot programs at index dot from complication template. We'll say template. And then finally, let's append this. So timeline entry array dot append for timeline entry. And we'll say next date equals next date dot adding time interval of 1 times 60. All right. And finally, got to put this in the right place. Goes right here. Return timeline entry array. All right. That should get rid of the error. Got too many blank lines there. I'm going to get rid of those. There. That's our getList method. Now let's apply this. So now we have an array of timeline entries. Now we're going to apply this. So we now have this method right below it, get timeline entries, whose sole purpose is to basically handle this entire, or these remaining timeline entries. So I'm just going to scroll up here and again, check to see what complication we're working with. Otherwise, we're going to have problems. It's going to crash. So we'll say if complication.family equals .graphic rectangular. That's what we're working with here. I'll fill in the blanks for the if in a moment. Let's do the else. Put the handler nil in the else. Right. And so now here, we'll just say var timeline entry array equals CLK complication timeline entry instantiated as an array. Timeline entry array equals getList. and finally handler for timeline entry array. All right, so now this method is handling the remaining timeline entries here. So we're basically done with providing data for the timeline and for our complication. But we have this last little method at the end. So the purpose of this last method is more visual for when you are choosing your complication to be added to your watch face. So it's more for the user to see some sample data if they were to choose your complication and apply it. And the way you can choose your complication is twofold. One, you could do it on your watch, or two, you can do it on the Apple iPhone's watch app. And I'm gonna point out exactly where that is when we get to choosing or setting this complication. So first off, we're going to have to make sure we're in the correct complication. So we'll say if complication.family equals .graphic rectangular, else handler nil. All right. Now let's instantiate a template. We'll say let template equal CLK complication template graphic rectangular standard body. There it is. And open up the round bracket. We're going for, again, header text provider, body 1 text provider, body 2 text provider. That's the one I want. So first argument is just CLK simple text provider. And we'll use text again, but I'm going to hard code my text this time just to say line 1. We'll say body 1 text provider will be CLK simple text provider. Text again. This will be line 2. And CLK simple text provider. Line 3. And finally, handler for template. All right, we're done coding. So now we need to apply this and hope nothing blew up. That was a lot of coding. Now we're gonna see what happens here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to run this. I'm gonna start by setting this to my iPhone 12p Max plus watch. Actually, no, I'm going to use Pro plus watch because I have that open right now. So there's iPhone 12p Pro plus watch. In our last video, we looked at how to create our own simulator pairing for a watch and for phone. So we're going to, so you can refer back to that video in order to figure out how to do that. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to run this. And the purpose of this right now is to just be able to get this into installed onto both the phone and the watch. All right, so ignore me, I'm complicated. It's perfect. Now we need to configure our watch to do this and to be able to access this complication. Okay, so there's two approaches to doing this. First of all, if you are playing with watch faces on your simulator for the first time, chances are you don't have this watch face. And so what you need to do is sort of set up watch faces. You may have something like this by default, right? Apple, in newer Apple Watches, decided to do away with the slew of default watch faces and just let you add them manually. So if you swipe left or right, you should hit this new this new and plus here. And what you do is you click on the plus, and you can choose swiping up or down from different watch faces and bringing them in. This one's my personal favorite. And if I swipe up enough, so here is one. This is infograph modular, which is what I already have added. Keep going. Here's just modular with less graphics. And we have here modular compact, right? So you can go ahead and choose any, really what we need is anything with this style of complication already in it. That's the main thing, right? I already have a watch face added, so I'm gonna hit cancel, but you would go ahead and choose whichever one you want. And I'm gonna go back and choose my infograph modular. So what we're seeing here is we have our watch complication. We need to configure the complication. So now I'm going to go to my Apple Watch here. My Apple Watch app on the iPhone, that is. It's going to load up. Might be a bit slow. All right. And you can see here, you can actually configure your watch through this app completely. Right? And first off, by looking at this here, you're seeing line 1, line 2, line 3, which is actually the template, whatever template data you can put for this last method, the get localizable sample template. You can change your watch face, right? You could configure, most importantly, you can configure the complications here. So the middle one I already had to my sample. What if I switched over to now playing? Should take a moment. There we go. Now playing, right? I could switch to other ones, but now what I'm looking for is my newest complication. I don't see it here. I see some of the sample ones from other applications I've made, and so I don't see it here because our project is called M10P2 Watch Complications, so I got to find it. All right. So I'm just going to swipe out of this. In fact, I'm going to try and get back. There it is. See if I can, no. There it is. I wanted to kill the watch app. That's what I was trying to do. So now, what I need to do is I need to run this on the watch as well. So I'm going to switch my target to the watch. I have my Apple Watch Series 6. There it is. Hit run. All right, it's going to let the app run just to make sure it gets installed. All right, see, it says exit me and look at the watch face. All right, so that's fine. Let's hit stop there. Now let's go back to the Apple Watch. Sorry, Apple Watch app on the iPhone. And there's my watch face. Now let's go to middle. Now, if you don't see it, you still got to work on trying to get it installed. That's the challenge here. So it may require some back and forth to try and get it installed here. That's the trick. Once it's installed here, then we're good. All right, so you'll see that my simulators have all just magically just changed all of a sudden. So what I did was I paused the recording because I didn't want to bore you with the details, but basically what I did was I ended up deleting my watch face. So you can see here, there is an option to say remove watch face as well as set current watch face when you scroll down. So I removed it and I re-added it in the simulator, and that got things going. So now I have my M10P2 watch complications. That's the sample line 1, 2, and 3 data. And I'm just going to scroll and say set as current watch face and give it a moment or two, and it should update the simulator. Now deleting and re-adding the watch face is kind of extreme, but it got the job done in my case. You may find that using, just starting, stopping, installing, reinstalling, trying those things would probably get things going as well. It's a bit finicky, but I will say compared to past years, it has gotten a lot better. Like being able to get the watch complication to install. So I will say that I would give kudos to Apple for improving upon things. Oops, so now we're just waiting for it to update here. Sometimes it doesn't do as told. If I switch watch faces and switch back. All right, so let's set this back as its current watch face. We try switching away. All right, but at some point this will work. If I try running the watch app again. Home. There we go. Monkey, Life of a Banana starts at 11:04. Now, what we'll do is we'll wait and see it move on ahead. Now, in older Apple Watches like Series 4 and below, they used to have this feature called time travel, where on the digital crown, if you rolled it in one direction or another, it would actually forward time for us. So what we're going to do is here, I'm actually just going to pause recording and resume when it shows you future sessions, but you'll probably just want to sit there, and that's actually why I just had it be like 1-minute sessions. You could probably switch down to 30-second sessions. It might go faster for you. Oh, and you can see here now, Donkey's Adventures, and any moment now we should see the next one. So I'm just going to pause recording. All right, and here's the third entry in our timeline. If you wait long enough, you'll see the last one. So I'm going to end it here. So there you have it. Now we know how to build watch complications to add to our Apple Watch. And now I encourage you to play with it. Switch over to graphics and see how you can apply graphics to this as well. Be a really good experience. You can really customize and really build things out exactly how you want it to be. All right, until the next tutorial, take care, and I'll see you around. Take care. Bye for now.